I wanted to go over a little bit the what Grok has been doing with automatic text summary on Twitter, and also how that relates to what we're doing at DeepNewz. So let's dive in. So you can see here on the screen, this is my Twitter, and as a paid Twitter user, you get this Explore beta, where you see what is very clearly AI generating stories based on my who I follow and the topics I'm tracking. So here you can see there's a story about AI glasses, some math gossip, some mathematicians cringe as 120% uncertainty claim goes viral. Prometheus 2, AI self-evaluation leap, and Binance fires whistleblower. So this is kind of interesting. Actually, in the past few days, I've noticed that most of the stories that I see here will sort of remain there for a day, and they're things that are already new. So this is actually kind of interesting that I'm showing some stories that I don't know if these are very major news, but these are things I don't really know about. So let's click on one of them. So the math, basically, some people are critiquing. Okay, I see. So they're talking about some clip from Andrew Huberman, who's in the news, and you can sort of see people have a lot of comments. Really weird that they didn't mention Huberman in the content. I'm not going to get too critical, but anyway, okay, so that's that. So that's fine. Let's go back and do another one. Oop, let me scroll down. Okay, what is this Prometheus thing? So let's see. Okay, so yeah, Prometheus 2 is an open LLM as a judge. Okay, that's pretty cool. We sort of get what's going on here. And then there's unrelated stories, sort of about the same topic, but not about Prometheus. Okay, here's a good tweet from Carlos Perez, is a good source about Prometheus. It's a good tweet. Maybe I'll check that out. Maybe I'll check out this tweet later. Yeah, and I think that's kind of like the vibe that I'm getting overall is you look at the title, it's appealing. This paragraph is kind of not that appealing, to be quite honest. Like no part of me really wants to read it. Maybe that'll get better over time. And then I really look at the tweets, and these are pretty good sources. I follow basically all the AI tech people, and these are good sources. These are nice. So I think at the end it pulls me sort of towards tweets. I'll go ahead and favorite this one, and maybe I'll look at that later as well. So that's basically that. And for background on what's going on here, so we looked up Grok AI. We see, ooh, okay, cool. They just raised 7 billion, 6 billion on an 18 billion valuation. As most of you probably know, Grok is built by Elon's XAI, which uses Twitter data and integrates into Twitter, but is a separate company from Twitter for various and let's just say obvious reasons. If you look here, actually a related story we show is this one. So the AI-driven news summaries, which is kind of what we're seeing. So if you look at our story here, basically, yeah, Elon has unveiled a new initiative to use AI for generating real-time news summary in social media. Um, and that's what we're seeing there. You can sort of see some of the top tweets about that, what Tech Meme has to say. Um, we can also, I think we also linked to an interview as well where Elon talks about this. And the story is from 6 days ago, but you can still very easily find it on DeepNewz. And that's what I wanted to talk about. So at DeepNewz, we've been doing this much longer than Grok has. We started maybe almost a year ago, and we've been live for 6 months. Obviously, as the tool has been improving. Oh, sorry, these are the tweets. So this is what DeepNewz looks like. So deepnews.com, you're going to go there, you're going to see sort of top overall stories. So the stories, so our stories are very different from Grok. This view is not personalized, although we'll show you a personalized view in a second. But first of all, we start with what are just the biggest news in the world going on right now, right? And according to us, obviously this crypto rule in the SEC is very big. There's a big story with RFK Jr.'s brain parasite. Nikola Jokic wins his MVP. There's actually a couple of TikTok stories. There's one below where TikTok is sort of suing about their ban, but also as you see, TikTok is doing auto labeling AI content from DALL-E 3 and Adobe's Firefly. This is interesting. Big game in the NBA last night. Brunson scored 29 despite sitting out a quarter with injury. Um, you see other things, some European soccer major stuff. We see the H5N1 bird flu is that's a developing story that's been going on for a couple of weeks, but basically that's the latest update on that. And you kind of see this story that kind of went viral with California students winning a lawsuit. They were, wrongfully thrown out of Catholic school for, basically being accused of something that they didn't do. Anyway, oh, and Otani's interpreter pleads guilty to extorting him. Interesting news. A lot of this is going to be yesterday's news because these stories happened yesterday and it's still sort of the morning, especially for the West Coast. So one thing I would note is that I remember watching this in real time. As soon as the Jokic MVP was announced, then the story jumped up, and I think it jumped either to number one, number two in top news immediately. So you will see that live if something happens. But again, going back to Grok, as you can see, they went way deep into the tail. They did use the space where that used to be trending news sort of globally and locally, and they're using it for very personalized sort of small stories, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't want to be critical of what they're doing. I think what they're doing is cool. There's just sort of a lot of things to be worked out. But as you can see, we start with the top stories. You can also go into the For You page. Here, it'll take a second to load up. Actually, I have it already preloaded, where this is going to be based on my reading history. So this is a very generalized model. It's just going to show the stories that are less focused on recency and more focused on sort of my interests. Um, and also, again, to be a slight alternative to top news, goes back a little bit further. So you'll see a lot of interesting stories. We still see that same Brunson, incredible game story, the MVP. So, that's actually the same. But for example, in information security, we see this pretty big story from yesterday about BetterHelp. That's the online therapy company that you've probably, if you listen to podcasts, you've probably heard them many, many times. They settled an FTC case that basically they were selling user data, essentially. I think I don't want to be misquoted here, but that's sort of what I vaguely remember from the case. And they settled for $10 a person or something pretty low like that. If you do those numbers, 8,800,000 users, they got $10. I'm sure the lawyers got a little bit of that too. Um, yeah, and you see that, you see some other information security ones. So right now, what's happening is we break it up by section. One thing you'll notice in top news is that we don't do that. So yeah, so for top news, this is just the top stories, and they can be a little bit out of order, although we have multiple tags. And for you, I think it's easier to and more pleasant for the user to organize it by section. So in this case, because the section got a top story, which I think is the better help one, which is kind of a big story actually. Then as a result, some of these more minor infosec stories sort of get pulled in, and we just sort them by time order. We may go back too long in terms of 7 days, but I think it's kind of interesting in some of these topics like science. Speaking of which, if you look at biology, there's an amazing, amazing, amazing stories that we see in the last few days. I mean, this one was pretty cool. Basically, Regeneron. Oh, sorry, it reloaded. But shoot. Oops. Sorry, not ideal. But yeah, the Regeneron story, as you can see. Let's open that one up. It's basically you had gene therapy that was used for children to restore hearing. And as if you can read the if you can read the full story, there's a clinical trial. It's a gene therapy. You have two children with congenial uh, deafness defects, and yeah, it's kind of amazing. Basically, the short version of the story is, they had a rare mutation, and with gene therapy, they were able to fix it with one injection, and these children were able to hear. So pretty amazing. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about this. As you can see, we have over 30 sources talking about this. We actually had the story pop up a lot earlier from a smaller number of sources. If you can go all the way down, you can sort of see when the story originated. It originated about a day ago, and we picked up on that. So we're getting that from Stat News, which is a very good source. Reuters Health, which is pretty good. So this particular story kind of got picked up and aggregated by mostly biology. Um, Sort of this kind of, whatever you think of Reuters, you see some of these finance people talking about this. This is, again, you see the catch tag for Regeneron. So this is kind of coming from a few different places. Yeah, a lot of market people picked up on this. Biotech people, market people, that this is pretty cool. So this is information that we had pretty early on, basically as soon as it hit Twitter and was tweeted by a couple of people. And then, it's trending higher because more people have talked about it. But our AI does look at things ahead of time and does figure out some small stories, not waiting for a large number of authors. So again, you're not really going to see it, but the Nikola Jokic, now has on the order of magnitude of 1,000 authors that talked about it. But as soon as it hits, you get a few authors like, hey, MVP is good. These are all good authors. Shoots all the way to the top. Let's take a look at a couple other interesting examples that I just sort of preloaded here. So yeah, we have the Regeneron story, which is amazing. Um, yeah, you see the sort of this TikTok story. Again, it has the details of what they're doing as far as addressing, you know, basically AI generated content on the platform. You can sort of see the sources, you can read the topics. Also, it's sort of tagged in AI, so you can do things like, for example, check, what are the top AI stories today. And yes, um, somewhat of a slow day so far, and so we have some kind of big stories from yesterday. You have the XAI, so Elon's company that we talked about. We have the TikTok story. We have Google DeepMind having another release for AlphaFold for DNA, and you see a few more company fundraisers. So we actually have some pretty deep tagging here as well. Yeah. So for look at this, so this company, so Altera raises 9 million for develop empathetic digital humans for gaming. So basically having more interesting and smarter NPC characters, essentially. Definitely a theme we've heard before. We're going to see some similar stories on the side. We're going to see a lot of entities that are tagged, and we're also going to see these other tags. So for example, here it's going to say, oh, AI fundraising, right? AI new products. So let's go ahead and click on AI fundraising. That'll take a minute to load. The reason the site's a little bit slow is, I mean, we are transitioning to a new database, but we have a lot of stories. So we're generating about 3,000 unique stories per day. That's after deduplication. So that's really quite a lot of stuff. And that adds up over a lot of days. So, you know, we generate a tremendous amount of content that is heavily deduplicated. Yeah, so take a look at this. Yeah, so we have AI fundraising. We see a bunch of stories that are, related to fundraising. You know, oh, this was a cool story the other day. Former SpaceX engineers, Xona, raises 19 million for GPS alternative. Very interesting story there. Let me tag that to read that later. You can sort of see a timeline of AI tech stories over time. As you can see, there's sort of there's a there's a very obvious skew towards weekdays and away from weekends. Also, AI fundraising has been pretty steady, but if you kind of look here, it sure looks like a month ago it really peaked. Right now we're only supporting 3 months, but we'll add 6 months and a year look back soon. And it'd be kind of interesting, I think, to visualize some of this. Also, this is sort of the best way we have to find stories in a day. So you want to know, okay, cool, March 26th, what happened there? And what the big stories were. And you can sort of scale through them. You can look at the biggest stories. The biggest story was the Anthropic investment. That is a big deal. But as you can see, there's just really kind of a volume of a lot of AI fundraisers going on at the time. Cool. So anyway, I kind of just wanted to show that you can keep going. You can look at a lot of things. I mean, this is a page for OpenAI. So these are all stories with the OpenAI entity tagged. We're improving this. We want to show other background information. We should be showing the graph down here. But you see all kinds of OpenAI stories, from the relationship to the TikTok to some of the companies that they're funding, some of their lawsuits, some of their modeling, even sort of kind of like just related things. So let's take a look at this one. Yeah, Microsoft's new 500 billion parameter model. And my one, this was a big story from a couple of days ago. As you can see here, this is AI modeling, new products, new fundraising. Yeah, the model confirmed, you see here, the model confirmed by Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott is expected to be a preview at Microsoft's Build conference. Fun fact, Kevin Scott was actually my first boss at Google, so really interesting to see that a lot of the people that I worked with over the years doing cool stuff in AI. Anyway, take a look at DeepNewz. I think hopefully I've sort of demonstrated where it is similar to what Grok and Elon's X.AI was doing. I mean, even though we did it first, which maybe counts for something, but you sort of see our different approach. we want to give you a couple slices, top news, the very biggest stories in the world that are not personalized. We could add a little bit of small personalization. Some people really don't like sports. Maybe we give you an option to get rid of all sports stories. But as you see, we sort of downvote them already. We only show the very, very biggest. And then the for you personalizations, which are going to be like a lot more specific to, to your interests. And you get those very quickly based on just reading a couple of stories. Um, and then also you can sort of drill down through search, through tagging entities, through uh, some of these graphs, and really just kind of interesting ways to see it where you can really feel that, hey, do I know everything about a topic? For example, this is the Columbia process. I mean, we have quite a large number of stories here. So, but you can also search, something like this, Columbia protests, and this is going to pull in sort of related stories from other universities, for example. And that could be interesting as well. Is the story accelerating? Is it decelerating? Yeah. You can find something like this. This was sort of an interesting story about the Chinese real estate market. And, you can drill all the way down to stories about Shenzhen or Hangzhou, et cetera. You can look at, hey, what are all the stories mentioning Jalen Brunson, the Knicks outstanding player. We also have a news chat and we have chat products. So for example, we can take this and summarize it into a paragraph like, hey, what's been going on with Jalen Brunson for the past month? Let us know, what you're interested in. I'm kind of not trying to hit you with the head with too many features. But I think you can sort of see how, we have all the recent stories, all the historical stories, and organized in a few different ways that you can find them. Or just, if you're lazy, click on the For You. It sort of sees what you already read. It pushes you other stuff that's related to it without just repeating what you already know. Anyway, thank you. This is Nikolai from DeepNewz, and hopefully this was an interesting exposition of what we're doing.